Reading through the Bible in a year, July 7th, Joshua chapter 9, Psalms 140 through 141, Jeremiah 3, and Matthew 17. As soon as the kings who were beyond the Jordan in the hill country and in the lowland all along the coast of the Great Sea toward Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites heard of this, they gathered together as one to fight against Joshua in Israel. But when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they, on their part, acted with cunning, and went and made ready provisions, and took worn-out sacks for their donkeys, and wineskins worn out and torn and mended, with worn-out, patched sandals on their feet, and worn-out clothes, and all their provisions were dry and crumbly. And they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal, and said to him, to the men of Israel, We have come from a distant country, and so now make a covenant with us. But all the men of Israel said to the Hivites, Perhaps you live among us. Then how can we make a covenant with you? Remember, Yahweh said to wipe out all the people of the land and not to make a covenant with them. Well, then they said to Joshua, Well, we are your servants. And Joshua said to them, Who are you? And where do you come from? And they said to him, From a very distant country your servants have come, because of the name of Yahweh your God. For we have heard a report of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and to Og, king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, Take provisions in your hand for the journey, and go meet them, and say to them, We are your servants. Come now, make a covenant with us. Here is our bread. It was still warm when we took it from our houses, as our food for our journey on the day when we set out to come to you. But now, behold, it is dry and crumbly. These wineskins were new when we filled them, and behold, they have burst. And these garments and sandals of ours are worn out from the very long journey. So the men took some of the provisions, but did not ask for counsel from Yahweh. This is what they should have done, but they did not. And Joshua made peace with them, and made a covenant with them to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation swore to them. At the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them, they heard that they were their neighbors, and that they lived among them. And the people of Israel set out and reached their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon, Chephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the people of Israel did not attack them because of the leaders of the congregation who had sworn to them by Yahweh, the God of Israel. Then all the congregation murmured against the leaders. But all the leaders said to the congregation, We have sworn to them by Yahweh, the God of Israel, and now we may not touch them. But this will do to them. Let them live, lest wrath be upon us, because of the oath that we swore to them. And the leaders said to them, Let them live. So they became cutters of wood and drawers of water for all the congregation, just as the leaders had said of them. Joshua summoned them, and he said to them, Why did you deceive us, saying, We are very far from you, when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and some of you shall never be anything but servants, cutters of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. And they answered Joshua in faith. Watch this. Because it was told to your servants for a certainty that Yahweh your God has commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land before you. So we feared. Who did they fear? Not the people. They feared Yahweh. They feared greatly for our lives because of you, and did this thing. And now behold, we are in your hand. Whatever seems good and right in your sight to do to us, do it. So he did this to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the people of Israel, and they did not kill them. But Joshua made them that day cutters of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of Yahweh, to this day, in the place that he should choose. That's all the notes. Now Psalms 140 through 141. Deliver me, O Yahweh, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men who plan evil things in their heart and stir up wars continually. They make their tongue sharp as a serpent's, and under their lips is the venom of asps. Guard me, O Yahweh, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have planned to trip up my feet. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net. Beside the way they have set snares for me. I say to Yahweh, you are my God. Give ear to the voice of my pleas for mercy, O Yahweh. O Yahweh, my Lord, the strength of my salvation. You have covered my head in the day of battle. Grant not, O Yahweh, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their evil plot, or they will be exalted. As for the head of those who surround me, let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. Let not the slanderer be established in the land. Let evil hunt down the violent man speedily. I know that Yahweh will maintain the cause of the afflicted and will execute justice for the needy. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. Psalm 141. O Yahweh, I call upon you. Hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call to you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Set a guard, O Yahweh, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart incline to any evil, to busy myself with wicked deeds, in company with men who work iniquity. And let me not eat of their delicacies. Let a righteous man strike me. It is a kindness. Let him rebuke me. It is oil for my head. Let my head not refuse it. Yet my prayer is continually against their evil deeds. When their judges are thrown over the cliff, then they shall hear my words, for they are pleasant. As when one plows and breaks up the earth, so shall our bones be scattered at the mouth of Sheol. But my eyes are toward you, O God, my Lord. In you I seek refuge. Leave me not defenseless. Keep me from the trap that they have laid for me, and from the snares of evildoers. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, while I pass by safely. Jeremiah chapter 3. If a man divorces his wife, and she goes from him and becomes another man's wife, will he return to her? Would not that land be greatly polluted? You have played the whore with many lovers, and would you return to me? Declares Yahweh. Remember, this is at the end of, if you've not read through the Bible before, if this is new context or new information to you. The kingdom of Israel, once delivered to the people after the book of Joshua, goes into the hands of the people. They demand for themselves a king, as God said would happen in Deuteronomy. And so God gave them the king that they wanted, and he was a terrible king. So then he gave them a king after his own heart, David. And after David, he had a son, Solomon, by the wife of Uriah, Bathsheba, if you know that story. And that is the son, that is the child who takes over as king in the land. There's a bunch of stuff that happens in the background. We'll get to that later. But what happens here is that Solomon rules well for most of his time. And then, because of his many wives from many of the lands around him, he begins to worship idols, demons. And so God broke the kingdom up before him. He had somebody who was coming in and trying to steal the kingdom from him, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and then his own son, Rehoboam, who took over the kingdom. And when Solomon died, the kingdom was split, as God said would happen. Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, took all of the other tribes of Israel and made the nation of Israel, whereas Judah remained by itself, being ruled over by Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. And Israel immediately began to revolt against Yahweh. They set up 2 places for people to go and worship instead of Jerusalem, because Jeroboam was afraid that if the people went back to Jerusalem, he would lose his control and the power. So he created 2 golden calves for the people to worship and said, "These are your gods. Go here and worship them." One in Shechem and then the other one in another city in Dan, I can't remember. But every king that they had, last Jehu, began to really just seek their own good. And none of them, except for Jehu, and he only did so momentarily, sought after the will of Yahweh. They all sought after their own will and their own desires. They were all terrible kings. Meanwhile, in Judah, they had good kings for a while. They had some good and some bad. The worst probably being Manasseh, the son of Hezekiah. And even though he repented at the end of his life, it's still at that point the die had been cast and it was done. So here we are. Jeremiah is the final prophet, the final voice of God. There were other prophets around the same time. We'll see that as we go through the minor prophets as well. Many of them were contemporaries with Jeremiah. But Jeremiah was the last real major prophet before Judah went into captivity. By this point, Israel, the nation, had already gone into captivity. And so what we see here is we see Jeremiah giving the same warnings that the people of Israel had already received. These are the same types of things that were said in all of the cities of Israel to warn them of the things that were to come. And they failed to repent. And so now these same things are being told with much urgency to the people in Judah. And so that's what we see being referenced here. The people had continually gone out to serve all of the other gods of the land, all of the other gods of the people. And so because of this, there was nothing really that could be done. They had all rejected God, continually rejected God, refused to come back to him. This is again why he's called the weeping prophet, because he sees these things developing. He knows what's going to happen, and the people will not listen. People today, if you ask them, they'd say, "Oh, I would love to be a prophet, to be the voice of God to the people." Because they think it's a job of laud and honor that everybody's going to pray. "Oh, here comes the prophet. Yay, it's the prophet." No. Being a prophet was a pitiable job. Most prophets were murdered because it didn't matter what the people wanted to hear. And there was a misconception that whatever, and we saw this with Balaam, right? People thought that the prophet commanded the will of God. The prophet's just the voice piece of God. That's it. If you're on an airplane, an announcement comes over the loudspeaker. You don't see the pilot, but you hear the voice of the pilot coming through. Well, what's the voice of the pilot coming through? The speaker. Do you worship the speaker? No. Does that speaker that you hear inside the cabin say anything other than what the captain is speaking? No. It can only do that which it was set for. So prophets of Yahweh have one job, and that's to say, "Thus saith Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh. That's why you see it through everything that he says. You'll see it repeatedly, declares Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh. Because he's reminding the people, this isn't from me. This isn't me saying these things. This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, creator God of the universe, who set Israel as a nation set apart to itself. This is what he says to you, you rebellious nation. And the people continue to refuse to listen to what's being said. Let's continue on. Verse 2. Lift up your eyes to the bare heights and see. Again, people would go up to the tops of mountains to worship demons. Where have you not been ravished? By the waysides you have sat awaiting lovers, like an Arab in the wilderness. You have polluted the land with your vile whoredom. Therefore the showers have been withheld, and the spring rain has not come. Yet you have the forehead of a whore. You refuse to be shamed. Have you not just now called to me? My father, you are a friend of my youth. Will you be angry forever? Will he be indignant to the end? Behold, you have spoken, but you have done all the evil that you could. Yahweh said to me in the days of King Josiah, again, this is good King Josiah, have you seen what she did? That faithless one, Israel, and the nation of Israel, pointing out what's going on, how she went up on every high hill and under every green tree, and there played the whore. Those are places where they would go to worship these demons, these idols. And I thought, after she has done all this, then she will return to me. But she did not return. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. She saw that for all the adulteries of that faithless one, Israel, I had sent her away with a decree of divorce. This is the captivity, being sent into captivity to the Chaldeans. Yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear, but she too went and played the whore, because she took her whoredom lightly. She polluted the land, committing adultery with stone and tree. Not really saying, worshiping idols made of rock and idols made of wood. Yet for all this, her treacherous sister Judah did not return to me with her whole heart, but in pretense, declares Yahweh. And Yahweh said to me, faithless Israel has shown herself more righteous than treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words to the north and say, return, faithless Israel, nation of Israel, declares Yahweh. I will not look on you in anger, for I am merciful, declares Yahweh. I will not be angry forever, only acknowledge your guilt, that you rebelled against Yahweh your God, and scattered your favors among foreigners under every green tree, that you have not obeyed my voice, declares Yahweh. Return, O faithless children, declares Yahweh. For I am your master. I will take you, one from a city and two from a family, and I will bring you to Zion. And I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. When you have multiplied and been fruitful in the land, in those days, declares Yahweh, they shall no more say the ark of the covenant of Yahweh. It shall not come to mind or be remembered or missed. It shall not be made again. At that time Jerusalem shall be called the throne of Yahweh, and all nations shall gather to it, to the presence of Yahweh in Jerusalem. And they shall no more stubbornly follow their evil heart, or their own evil heart. In those days the house of Judah shall join the house of Israel, and together they shall come from the land of the north to the land that I gave your fathers for a heritage. I said, how would I set you among my sons, and give you a pleasant land, a heritage most beautiful of all nations? And I thought you would call me my father, and would not turn from following me. Surely, as a treacherous wife leaves her husband, so you have been treacherous to me, O house of Israel, declares Yahweh. A voice on the bare heights is heard, the weeping and pleading of Israel's sons, because they have perverted their way. They have forgotten Yahweh, their God. Return, O faithless sons. I will heal your faithlessness. Behold, we come to you, for you are Yahweh, our God. Truly, the hills are a delusion, the orgies on the mountains. Truly, in Yahweh, our God, is the salvation of Israel. But from our youth, the shameful thing has devoured all for which our fathers labored. Their flocks and their herds, their sons and their daughters, lie down for us, or rather, lie us down in our shame, and let our dishonor cover us. For we have sinned against Yahweh, our God, we and our fathers, from our youth even to this day, and we have not obeyed the voice of Yahweh, our God. Including today in Matthew 17. Telling you, Jeremiah is just a killer book. All right. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah, Moses representing the law, and Elijah representing the prophets, talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I'll make 3 tents or tabernacles. One for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. These are basically making 3 temples. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and have no fear. When they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Tell no one the vision, until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. The disciples asked him, Then why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come? And he answered, Elijah does come, and he will restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man will certainly suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. When he came to the crowd, a man came up to him and kneeling before him said, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he has seizures and suffers terribly. He often falls into the fire and often into the water, and I brought him to your disciples, and they could not heal him. And Jesus answered, O faithless and twisted generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him. And the boy was healed instantly. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, Why could we not cast it out? And he said to them, Because of your little faith. For truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move. And nothing will be impossible for you. Again, that was a Jewish idiom in the time for something that was an impossible task, moving a mountain. Verse 22. As they were gathering in Galilee, Jesus said to them, The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and he will be raised on the 3rd day. And they were greatly distressed. When they came up to Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma tax went up to Peter and said, Does your teacher not pay the tax? And he said, Yes. When he came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first. So before Peter went to him and said, Hey, these people, he already knew what was going on. And he said, What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take toll or tax? From their sons or from others? When he said, From others, Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are free." However, not to give offense to them, go to the sea and cast a hook, and take the first fish that comes up. When you open its mouth, you will find a shekel. Take that and give it to them from me and for yourself. And that is it for today. That's all the reading and all of the notes. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.